Today I'm going to be installing Naomi, which is a voice assistant software that is developer friendly. It's easy to write modules for and get to the source code and really dig around and see what you can do with it. I'm going to be installing a version that's so new this time that it actually is a pull request still. So I'm going to cd into Naomi and fetch 373. And I'm merging it because there have been some other pull requests that have been merged already that I want to go ahead and keep. So at this point, just do Naomi setup dot shell. And I'm actually testing this, so I want to install, and hopefully it won't take 3 hours because I removed a lot of the compiling stuff. Okay, I am going to go ahead and allow the process to run uninterrupted because it does select a couple of options. Of course, here it's interrupting me again, but and at this prompt, I want to hit capital S, which is not one of the documented choices, but it allows me to keep the version that I've already downloaded. Otherwise, it would download a new version from GitHub automatically for me. Okay, so just installing all the apt things. I'm installing this on an Armbian system, actually a Libre ROC-RK3328-CC, which also is called a Renegade. But this board is kind of an alternative to Raspberry Pis. Raspberry Pis are like impossible to get right now, basically. This board's been around since 2018, so it's not the fastest or the most capable alternative for Raspberry Pis, but it cost me $50 to buy the basic board on Amazon. I did also buy a heatsink for it, which was another $10. So it's pretty comparable to what a Raspberry Pi 4 with 4 gigabytes of RAM should cost. And that's what this has, 4 gigabytes of RAM. It's got a quad-core processor, which is a little bit slower. I think the Raspberry Pi has a 1.8 gigahertz processor, and the Renegade has a 1.4 gigahertz processor. it does what I need it to. Okay, yeah, I've been having trouble with MPD for some reason. I'm not really sure what that's about. Haven't really looked into it. An MPD is just used if it's the default playlist manager for if you want to use your voice assistant to listen to music, or if your radio station is still publishing a playlist to access it. You can listen to the radio also. Okay, creating the virtual environment. That is great. And I think it chooses yes for me automatically here. So, yeah, it's just continuing on. I think if I hadn't selected run uninterrupted, that it would have waited for me to make a choice. So what I'm testing out is the old version, the current version of this software. In the install process, it downloads the source code for a bunch of programs and compiles them, which is not really necessary at the moment. Or at least not necessary if you're running on a Debian type system. For the most part, they all seem to have a copy of Pocket Sphinx available in the repository, and then you can pip install the Pocket Sphinx and Phonetosaurus packages once you're in your Python virtual environment. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some projects that I'd love to see done with this. One thing that I've been really wanting for a long time is a list tool that allows you to create and populate a shopping list. There are a lot of things that really haven't been possible for the first few years that I've been working on this, that now are possible due to how good speech recognition is getting. So in the past, if I wanted to have a shopping list, I'd have to have like a standard shopping list: milk, eggs, bacon, cereal, and then tell Naomi that I would like to add something from that list to my shopping list, which would have worked okay. It would have required sitting down and figuring out what sorts of things you would normally add to a list, and also if you wanted to add something new, or you would have to go in and manually edit the standard list, because Naomi only knew the words that were involved with what you're telling it, or the words that you've given it, basically, in the form of utterances in the intents within the speech handlers, which are basically the same thing as skills. So anyway, a list, one of the things that would be nice would actually be to have profiles for different people. I've been thinking about this a lot. I've got a basic setup for speaker recognition that I'm going to try and add into the system in, sometime in the next month or so, I hope. I haven't found any libraries that work really well, and I haven't figured out how to introduce a new person to the system and get Naomi to start collecting a library of their utterances. I tried telling Naomi that this is so and so. Okay, wow, so it's done. So at this point, you just type in the Naomi repopulate, which actually the first time that you run it, you don't really need that, because Naomi will prompt you for anything that it doesn't have in the profile already. But we'll go ahead and say repopulate. Okay, no, I don't want to update Naomi. Seriously, no. Okay, installing Phonetosaurus. Okay. So yes, English. This is different levels at which you can collect audio. This is basically to be used for training language models. So if you wanted to train a voice activity detector, you might put it at the noise level so that it would collect things that were both voice and not voice. If you put it at the passive level, then it'll record anything that that isn't that where words come through. And then active is only things that Naomi hears with the wake word. So active or none are usually what you want. I'm going to go ahead and put in active so that I can start customizing this system to my voice. But none is a fine choice also, and it's the default, and it's the best for privacy. Okay, so either when Naomi wants you to know that it is listening, it can either beep at you or say, I'm listening, or something. So I always go for the beeps. So here you can give Naomi any voice and any name that you want. So I'm actually generally what the name that I use is Magic Voice, which was the shipboard computer on Mystery Science Theater. And it's a good 3-syllable wake word. They really recommend that you use something that is 3 or more syllables just to make it easy to recognize. A 1-syllable name, you're probably going to get a lot more false positives from that. So yeah, we want to use Pi Audio. I'm hoping to update the sound system also later this month. Okay, so here's a list of devices that have been picked up for Pi Audio. I usually use Pulse. It's usually what I want. And of course, you can set what the defaults are using PA command or PA control. Yes, I heard this. I heard the beep. Now, if you put no here, I'm going to go ahead and say no and go through the troubleshooting for you. Would you like to troubleshoot? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and launch ALSA Mixer. This gives you some volume control. And so I'm going to raise that up. I'm also going to go to F4 and the capture. Okay, that's all the way where it needs to be. And this is the Pulse Audio card. So I hit escape to get out of that. Chunk size, I think the default is actually 1024, but if you're having trouble, it goes and assumes that you need a larger chunk size. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 2048 and see how that does. You don't need to pad the output anymore, and that should not be the default anymore. And no pause length either. So let's, 0.0. Okay, there we go. Okay. So, pulse. Yep, heard it. Okay. Now it's going to set up the input device. And here I also want to use pulse. And yeah, let's go ahead and test this. This is one of the things that was fixed earlier this month. This is a test. Okay, yes, I did hear myself. So, now here the default should really be WebRTC VAD. The SNR VAD, the WebRTC VAD has the same abilities as SNR VAD. It's basically SNR VAD with an extra little speech test. SNR is something that I wrote that just uses volume levels. I wrote it from the original voice activity detector in the program Jasper AI, the program that Naomi is built off of. So, but I turned it into a plugin and created a new VAD plugin class. So WebRTC VAD uses the WebRTC voice activity detector on top of the volume detector. The volume detector was pure Python, so that was nice. Anyway, you want the WebRTC VAD. And you always want to leave it at 16,000 hertz. The chunk size with WebRTC VAD, it can only be 0.1, or 0.01, 0.02, or 0.03 seconds per chunk. And I went for the largest one. So passive speech to text engine. All of the other ones here, AT&T, Watson, and Wit AI, they're all cloud servers. Caldy GST server is if you have Caldy running on a another computer someplace, because back when that plugin was written, Caldy couldn't run on the Raspberry Pi hardware. The Raspberry Pi hardware just wasn't advanced enough to actually run Caldy, and nowadays you can actually run it. And one of these days I will actually get a local Caldy server running. But anyway, the only one that's really easy to set up here is going to be Sphinx. So I'm going to select that for the passive, also the active, and also the special speech-to-text engines. And here you get to select a text-to-speech engine, which is a speech synthesizer. I usually go for Flight. I think if you have German or French, it would be better to use Pico, which doesn't even show up on this list. So somebody needs to go in and fix the, I believe it's called Pico, text-to-speech engine. So I'm just going to select this for right now. We could really use some people who are multilingual to go in and work with this a little bit. It's really not that hard to add other languages. You just have to find a speech-to-text system and a text-to-speech system that will work in the language that you want, and then create a bunch of translation records. Should I listen while I am talking? Yes, you should. And this may be an option that goes away soon. I need to really build in echo cancellation into this thing, which is something that I've been looking at for a while. I just haven't had time for. I have used the Pulse Audio echo cancellation, actually the web RTC noise cancellation plugin for Pulse Audio, and that generally works pretty well, but when it doesn't work at all. So I'm looking at some other libraries out there. So yeah, go ahead and talk. Turn on passive listening. Yes, I definitely want that. Passive listening just means that Naomi will respond if you embed the wake word in the request. So instead of saying, Naomi, beep, what time is it? Boop, the time is 4:59, whatever. You just say, Naomi, what time is it? It's a lot easier for me. So this has been working pretty well. Also, this used to not work very well, especially if you were using Sphinx for everything, but it seems like the update that I did just recently with the new language model, I'm using KenLM to create a language model now, and it seems to work a lot better. So I want to say yes. And I definitely want the print transcripts too, because it allows me to read the conversation and see exactly what Naomi is thinking that it hears. Okay, and with all of these things, you can just skip any of these prompts. The email address right now is just for there's two different ways it could be used. One is checking the email, and the other one is checking and responding to email, so that you could email or text a message to your Naomi and receive a response back, which would be really helpful for things like grocery lists. You get to the store, you can just text your Naomi and say, hey, what's on my shopping list? And it could tell you. So I'm just going to hit enter here, because it's always acceptable to not give information. Same thing here. And this is setting up the World Weather Information Service. Okay, MPD control. Time zone, gets that from the system. Okay, now this is going to take a little while. Downloading and installing the Pocket Sphinx language model. Actually, that doesn't take so long, but what takes a long time is building the pronunciation database for doing grapheme to phoneme conversions of words that Naomi has not seen before. Things like magic voice, or the titles of record albums that have words that aren't standard words, or if you live in a town with a name that is unusual. There's all kinds of reasons why it would have to add words to the dictionary that are not in the standard CMU dictionary. So that's what it's doing now. It's training an FST model. For some reason, the first time that you run this, it appears that it is suppressing training that FST model, or it's suppressing the output when you're training the FST model. It should actually be providing a bunch of information, and I'm not sure at what point it's actually being told to pipe that information to dev null or into a buffer someplace instead of just displaying it on the screen. Because when you go back and do this after this initial install, it doesn't do that. Now it might actually be something in the setup program. So I'll have to look at that, see if there's something in there. Anyway, this takes a very long time. So anyway, like I was saying, it would be great to have a tool to just create grocery lists. And now that the state of the art in speech to text is getting better with things like VOSC, we can have big enough dictionaries of words that we don't have to actually, define a list of things that you might want to have on your grocery list. Although we could still do that, and I'll have to think about whether we can do that in a way where it works regardless of whether you're using a large speech recognition model or something that only can recognize, a few hundred words like Pocket Sphinx, or, the accuracy drops off a lot after a few hundred words. Let's see. I was thinking of other things that I'd love to see. So I think we're getting ready to rewrite the installer anyway. We have somebody who is interested in porting Naomi over to Arch Linux, and we'd love to see people create installers for Yum and Zipper and the other package systems out there that aren't Debian based. So I'm just trying to think what I could talk about. At this point, so there's a lot of things that could be done for this project. One of the things is that we'd love to have a web interface for configuration stuff, which is something that some of the other tools out there, like Project Alice or Raspi have. We kind of created this interface, this text, kind of this old school command line interface, just out of necessity, just because we needed to do something. We weren't really sure the best way to set up a web server for this. So if somebody wanted to take that on, that would be great. I mean, what we really want to do is have a web API that Naomi uses, which would allow you to configure stuff and also to view the logs, send requests. I mean, the connecting to the speaker and microphone as a web web service would be great. But this works. The big problem with this interface right now is that there's no way to go back to the previous question. If you discover that you hit enter too quickly, or you just made the wrong choice, or whatever, I'd love to be able to kind of return to the previous question, which I'm sure is possible. I'm sure there's a lot of different ways that could be done in this sort of an interface. Kind of the Unix interfaces that I have used before, you use the up hat, to the power of Shift 6 key to go to the previous question out of a list. So what I'm thinking there would be good would be to just collect all of the questions that need to be configured into a big list, and then pass that to a configuration program, which means that you could use that then to generate a series of tabs on a web page or something. So I've talked a little bit about the speaker recognition stuff. One thing that I want to make sure people are aware of is that we do have a kind of an app store called the Naomi Plugin Exchange. It's the way that it works is you write a plugin and host it on your own source code service like GitHub or it has to be a Git type repository service, but any of those should work. And then you there's a CSV file on Naomi in the Naomi plugins repository where you create a line for your plugin, and then people are able to actually search for and install your plugin right through the right through the Naomi interface. And maybe I'll try and demonstrate that. Yeah, I gotta figure out why this isn't producing any output. It takes forever to run this, probably 20 minutes. So now I'm wishing I hadn't paused and talked so much during the first part of this. Other things that we would really like to have. There are right now a lot of plugins that were inherited from um, from the Jasper project that just aren't configured by default, and they don't really work. At least with our default installer, they're there. They're interesting. You can take a look at them. But it would be great to move them someplace else, because right now it just generates a bunch of error messages. Oh, great. It's all the way to compiling CanLM. Okay, we survived the FST pronunciation model creation. Now CanLM takes a while, but it's not a super long time, and it does give you this nice progress indicator as it's building. So CanLM, probably eventually this will get into the repos. It's a very popular language model builder right now. And so far, I have not, there's always a couple of caveats when you use it. And they say use SRILM because it has these features that CanLM is missing. And I would love to know more about the difference between CanLM and SRILM. The problem with SRILM is that it's not available for commercial use, and we can't really bundle it with Naomi. We could help you download it, which would be fine, but they collect some information as part of the downloading process. Caldi kind of tried to create a front end for that, and that didn't really work. So I've always had to just download and install it, download, compile, and install it manually. And like I said, it's got some use restrictions on it, whereas CanLM and OpenGRM do not seem to have those issues. And CanLM does everything that I need it to, and it runs well on smaller hardware or less capable hardware like the Raspberry Pi or this Renegade system that I'm running on today. So I am trying to build a HCLG language model for Caldi, for Vosk specifically, because Vosk is fantastic, and it's fairly easy to build a language model, but they use the SRILM toolkit. Now, it may be that just, it's because of the sheer number of words and phrases that you have to process in order to get a nice big language model like what VOSC is using. But I've used their tools to generate a new language model, and that a new language model for VOSC. And that works really well, but it requires a lot of RAM and processing power, and it's kind of time consuming to build it. I've only managed to build it with a computer with 32 gigs of RAM on it. So I am hoping that I can find some kind of a good compromise between that and Ken LM. Because creating the so with HCLG, H stands for HMM, C stands for context, L stands for lexicon, and G stands for grammar. And so what you're doing is you are feeding in raw phonemes and figuring out what the most likely series of words that conform to those phonemes would be based on the language model and well, all of it actually. And of course, I'm kind of running behind still. I've seen a number of interviews with people who are working on speech recognition that say you really need a neural network and not one of these HCLG models to get the best performance, but training a neural network is way beyond the capabilities of the Raspberry Pi right now. You know, give it a couple of years and hopefully we'll get more kind of neural network on a chip hardware that'll make it much faster and easier to develop these things. But for right now, it seems like the HCLG model works better for these kinds of applications. And you don't really need like a full, you don't need every word and every word in context. I mean, if Naomi makes mistakes, and Naomi does make mistakes a lot as far as hearing what I'm trying to say, it's not the end of the world. there's always tons of stuff that needs to be done once you start digging into this project a little bit. Probably should have brought up the window. I'm gonna just look at just going to look at the series of issues here. So user profiles, yeah, that's a new one that I actually am working on. Use JSGF for writing intents. Yeah, I've been wanting to have a better way of presenting intents, and it seems like actually SRGS is what I think we would end up using, which is a way of writing grammars and basically creating conversations that you can have specifically for web consumption. So sort of like a telephone tree for a website is the way that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, it's a standard technology, so it seems like it would make sense to use it for our project, because if you get good at writing these things, then there'll probably be work for you. It's not exactly that user-friendly, so it might be that we need to create a tool for creating utterances easily, just by saying, here's all the ways that I can think of to say this. Naomi, what time is it? Naomi, what's the time? Naomi, what does the clock say? I don't know, whatever. Pull those in. We really need a tool that helps people write a speech handler plugins. That would be awesome. So let's see, support for SpeechBrain. That's one. We'll see about that. It would be great, And one of my goals with this project was just to find out what kind of the state of the art is as far as open source speech recognition. The other big draw to this project for me is figuring out how to customize an acoustic model to a particular person, especially if somebody is having speech issues. If somebody who's had a stroke, or if somebody is frustrated with being able to speak, we don't want them to be frustrated with their personal voice assistant. Okay, need a PyPy installer. Yeah, that would be that would be nice. I think that would make it a lot easier for people to try out Naomi. Intent vectors, that's something that I'm thinking about. The state of the art in speech recognition has kind of moved on from intent vectors, I think. But they are interesting and could be used to do things like suggest alternative ways of saying something when somebody is creating a speech handler. So what a speech handler tool would do would kind of walk you through the process of figuring out how to build a bunch of intents. Probably give you the skeleton of the speech handler. Let's see, add support for Koki AI. That's another newish speech recognition system. It's basically the people who did the Deep Speech project for Mozilla a couple of years ago. Mozilla has dropped that project, and okay, we're to the configuration thing. So anyway, Koki and SpeechBrain are two that don't really run on Raspberry Pis. They need either specifically x86 64 hardware or just more powerful hardware, so they're kind of low priority at this point. So I think the HMM file is all that I need for Sphinx. And then, okay, of course, the CanLM. You no longer have to put in the location of the G2P model. I'm going to skip this one.
My name is Magic Voice. How can I be of service?
Magic Voice, what time is it?
It is 3:45 p.m. right now.
Okay, wow. That's quite wrong.
My apologies. Could you try saying that again?
But it did get the right intent.
I beg your pardon.
Okay, so
I have no location on record. Please run Naomi repopulate and select a city.
okay, so I'm getting a lot of false positives right now, which is unusual.
I have no location on record. Please run Naomi repopulate and select a city.
Magic Voice, shut down, please.
Shutting down now.
So I'm going to go ahead and install. Let's see here. So I'm going to show you the Naomi plugin exchange. Which unfortunately has to run through the whole initialization process right now. I'm not really sure why that is, or if I could. I'm sure that there's a way that I could move the MPE stuff further up. Okay, so what I really want to do is install Pocket Sphinx KWS. Which KWS stands for keyword search. Let's see, I also like to install greetings, which just makes Naomi a little more conversational. So just greetings. So if a plugin name has multiple words in it, you have to enclose them in quotes. And a lot of the plugin names do have those. And really, the plugin name should be the same as what is in the plugin's info file. And that's another reason why it would be really nice to have a tool to help build plugins. Not sure why it's going so slowly. Yes, I heard that. I'd like to know what it's doing there. No, I don't want to test it because I've already tested it. Okay, WebRTC. Okay, passive. I want to use Pocket Sphinx KWS. Just, this is all already configured. It would also be nice to be able to say, hey, I've changed everything that I want to change, so just go ahead and save and exit this configuration thing. Okay, well, that's not good. What happened there? Okay. Okay, nothing in it. It's really odd. Let's see if it'll tell me what is going on here. Just made some changes. Ooh. Sphinx Space. 263. Forgot that Armbian does not install Vim by default, which is just weird, because I've been using Vim. It's been on every Unix system that I have used going back to the 70s. So, of course, it messes me up whenever it's not there. Okay, so what was it? 263? Check pocket space model. I could have sworn that was in there. Yeah. Oh, that's really strange. Okay, well, I fat-fingered some things, obviously. Okay. This is interesting. I pulled in some stuff yesterday to oh, you know what? I know what's going on. This is not the right version. Yeah, this is not the right version. Okay. That's right. Master. Get branch. Okay. Now then, because when you install things through the Naomi plugin exchange, they are stuck at a particular commit, whatever commit it was when somebody from the project was able to review the plugin and just make sure it's not doing anything sneaky or unpleasant. So it pulled the old version. I wanted to test the new version. So let's now go back and do Naomi debug again. Debug just lets it print out some more information whenever there is a problem. That's one of the things that I'm really looking at, trying to figure out is how to best do that. Okay, it's creating my thresholds file.
My name is Magic Voice. How can I be of service?
Magic Voice, what time is it?
I have no location on record. Please run Naomi. Repopulate and select a city. Yes, I can hear you. Goodbye.
Naomi, what time is it?
It is 4:01 p.m. right now. It is 4:01 p.m. right now. It's nothing very complicated. Try and be nice to people, avoid eating carbohydrates, spread a good book every now and then, get some walking in, and try and live together in peace and harmony with people of all creeds and nations.
Well, it's interesting that Naomi is picking up so much audio, because this does have hardware.
Hi there.
Magic Voice, shut down, please.
Shutting down now.
So I want to go in and change the wake word to Naomi and see if that helps any. Keyword.
My name is Naomi. How can I be of service?
Naomi, what time is it? Naomi, what time is it?
It is 4:03 p.m. right now.
Okay, well that works a lot better. I'm very surprised that it's having so much trouble with Magic Voice. Naomi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
That's amazing. That's working so much better now. I can't really explain it. Okay, Naomi, shut down, please.
Shutting down now.
Okay, that's it. I'm done for today.